Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today I have a very special guest. John Graham is a three-time USA memory champion and Grandmaster of memory who has overcome panic attacks and chronic anxiety through innovative methods. As an entrepreneur since 2012, he mentors high performers and champions mental wellness. Inspired by Moonwalking with Einstein, John has won multiple USA memory championships and now helps others at releasepanic.com/free. John, welcome to the show.
Lance, awesome to be here. Great intro. I'm happy to dive in and share some wisdom here.
Yeah, cool. Well, before we dive in, tell us what got you here in terms of entrepreneurship. Are you from a family of entrepreneurs? Are you the first? Where does that spirit come from?
Yeah, I'm the first. So I broke a trend, right? I worked a salary cubicle job in Denver for a bankruptcy firm and didn't like it at all. Like immediately knew I was not a good employee. Never been a good employee. Always had just aspirations of breaking free. You know, it started off with wanting to be rich, right? I think we all kind of start off that way of freedom, rich, but then your gifts come online and you pursue that route. So
yeah. I was you say you were a bad employee. That's very interesting. I was like a disgruntled employee often, you know, and that kind of pushed me in that direction too, where I was just like, you guys are bad at business. I should be the one doing business. So I love that. What is a memory champion?
Yeah, memory champion is someone who learns memory techniques. Like I'm not gifted this way naturally. I've learned techniques to compete in competitions where we memorize lists of names, lists of numbers, decks of cards, words, all these things. It's just competitive memory. Just using, you know, some people have probably heard of the memory palace before. Just techniques that our mind, like once you learn to use your mind and give your brain what it wants, you can memorize massive amounts of information.
And what led you to want to even do that?
Yeah. So I was in that cubicle. I read an article about Moonwalking with Einstein, a book that says it's the art and science of remembering everything. So I picked up the book. It was one of those books that grabbed my soul. You know, it talks about ordinary people who use visualization, story, technique to memorize, you know, decks of cards within seconds and minutes and, you know, lists of thousands of digits in an hour. And, you know, like I was just intrigued. I didn't believe it at first. I wanted to try it and it just took off.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I just wrote the book down. I think my business partner has read it. So fascinating. And then you just went down there, it just grabbed you. I love that. You've been an entrepreneur since 2012, as you mentioned earlier. And your bio, that's a little bit longer that I've read. It said you have 5 failed businesses from those. What did you learn from those failures?
Yeah, a lot of people look at the business strategies and the failures. What I took from that, Lance, was I failed. Why did I fail? Because I'm the business.
Mm-hmm.
It's me. If I don't get up and work, the business doesn't do anything. If I procrastinate, you know, because I struggled with procrastination, mental paralysis, you know, I would get so far and then I would stop. I would overthink. I wouldn't go all the way and I would give up. And it was my own subconscious patterns, self-sabotaging behaviors, you know, that caused the failures of the business. It wasn't the business and the strategy itself. It was me. And so my pursuit was learning, how do I break free of these limitations of me? Because the only way this is going to work is if I work.
How did you, okay, yeah, maybe you could, what were some of those traits that you had and then how did you break those? You know, what were maybe that starts to get into the methodology here.
Absolutely. So you try all the mental stuff, at least I did. I idolized the mind and thought my mind was my way out. You know, it's labeled mental performance, it's labeled mental health, right? So why not optimize my mind? And I tried all the hacks, I tried all the supplements, all the guided meditations, all the flow state, block your distraction type of books, like everything mental. I tried hypnosis, everything, therapy, reframes, positive thinking, you name it. And come to find out, the reason, the root of it all, the root why I'm in anxiety, procrastinating, have all these subconscious things, it's an emotional root issue. It's not mental. Mental is what holds all of those patterns in. And so all the mental stuff I tried for 20 plus years, it never broke free of my anxiety and the stuff. Once I went to the emotional root, I started freeing myself very quickly.
Well, it sounds like there's some trauma here. That maybe is that where the emotional issues came from?
Yeah, we all do this. We all have trauma. I hated the word trauma, Lance. Like when I
Yep.
first started hearing about it, I was like, I wasn't abused. I don't have any of this trauma stuff, bull crap, you know.
Hmm.
Come to find out, we all have suppressed emotions. There are moments in our life we didn't handle. Whether you got bullied and laughed at in third grade, whatever, we store these. If we don't process them out, they're stored inside of us, and they stay and they stack, and they cause all of these self-sabotaging subconscious behaviors because we're protecting ourselves from putting ourselves out there because we've been scarred in the past.
Yeah, I agree. That word trauma is tricky, right? Because I think and this is just my take, is that it's as a male, you're sort of shorting some vulnerability if you just kind of accept that, right? And I know you're using the words emotion, which maybe is a little more masculine. I don't know. Whatever people are comfortable with in that kind of a way. I get it. Even today, men still aren't supposed to cry. What those 5 businesses that failed were sort of turning a mirror on yourself,
Mhm.
showing you what you needed to improve. Once you improve those, then was there any other businesses that were successful after that besides what you're doing now?
Hmm. I mean, I was a successful memory coach. I was number one Google result for memory coaching, and so people came from me from all over the world. But I was embodied in, and I was one of the best in the world. So that was an easy one to. But that's the thing is like, well, business should be easy. It should be your passion. It should be what you love to do every day, and that's what I was doing. And I wasn't trying to force, because I think when you try to force things, you force yourself to get rich. You force yourself for a business to work, and it just doesn't align. That's a bad recipe. So I think that was part of the issue too. I just wanted to get rich. I wanted to be free, and I was doing things that I didn't like. So when I
Hmm.
started aligning with things that I enjoyed and that I wanted to do every day, it just became easier, right?
Yeah, yeah. The word I've been using lately has been harmony.
Mm.
Instead of like work-life balance,
Yeah, balance is bullshit.
it is because yeah. Like when I think of that word and it relates to business, when people use that as the image of a scale instantly comes in, and I'm like, oh, that's not about a trade-off,
No.
in that kind of a way.
Mm.
I'm glad you got to that point. If people are you had to experience failure of creating these businesses and they didn't work in order for that mirror to be turned on. Like, do you have any advice for anybody's listening of how they could try to get to that quicker? Any other kind of methods where they can just turn that mirror in?
Yeah. Well, I love using your business and your life and your relationships as a mirror is so powerful. Like if life is loud, if you're running up against a wall, that is a huge indication there's a block inside of you, right? Subconscious, whatever, heart memory, whatever you want to call it. That's limiting. Instead of fighting it and pushing through it, we got to lean into that. We got to feel that frustration. You got to feel that disappointment. You got to lean into the anxiety, almost do the exact opposite of what we have been taught. Like masculine, you talk about masculine, right? Men have a very hard time with this because this is
Hmm.
like a very feminine type of process of just like leaning into the energy of the emotion, which like I get it. It's like what? Like telling a guy to do that? It's like what? No, tell me what to do. Tell me what supplement to take.
Yeah.
And I get it. But literally feeling your frustration, feeling the energy in your body of the frustration, the anxiety, whatever is arising will transmute it. And I know that sounds silly and stupid, and the mind will get in the way. Like all of a sudden you go, wait, what's John saying? Is this work? How much is in there? How long do I have to do this? I got stuff to do, right? Your mind will get in the way, but it's the only way to overcome these subconscious things is to lean into that energy, that emotion that's arising to transmute it.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Even as you were admitting how men feel, I was just getting a little uncomfortable myself. So
Yeah.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. But it's important. I don't know. So you're out there doing God's work by probably changing people's lives with your methodology. Maybe it's so then it doesn't get to that uncomfortable level. Um, what is it? I know you performed in front of 400 million people. What was that like? I'm sure you couldn't see them all, obviously, but was there still like a level of nervousness there? How
Oh
did you
yeah.
overcome that?
Oh yeah. Well, we don't overcome pressure. We have to lean into it, right?
Mm.
People try to defeat pressure, block pressure, that causes all kinds of resistance. So when I'm up on stage, and yeah, it was a show in China, 400 million people in China watch this. I had to memorize 100 random items. They were placed in 100 random lockers in front of me. So I had to memorize the locker number of each item, and then each item was locked with a 4-digit code. So 600 digits, 100 items in front of 400 million people, right? Pretty easy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm up there, I'm hot, I'm in a suit, it's like 90 degrees with the lights, my heart is racing, I feel adrenaline, I feel the nerves, right? I'm a normal human being. I've done this stuff before, but I'm still feeling that adrenaline, right? I almost felt faint, like I had to call on water and they gave me Snickers bars to like go through that, right? While I'm on stage. But the way you move through pressure is you feel it, you allow it to fully ripple through your body. Like as I'm up on stage, I'm aware of my heart rate, my sweat. I'm hearing the demons in my mind saying, you know, you suck, you're going to mess up, this is too fast, whatever. But I allow it all to happen. And I've trained myself that way so that I can succeed and bring my focus back onto what it is. Because blocking out internal distractions is bullshit. It's going to cause resistance. It's going to make things worse. The only way to transcend this pressure, this anxiety, is to lean into it and let it happen and let it flow through you so it doesn't get stuck.
Yeah, I love that you lean into it. It reminds me of like one of the things I do with businesses. We've always emphasized at our various companies. If there's a problem, we drop everything, we run at it. So you're leaning into that pressure
Yeah.
and you're just
Yeah.
solving the problem, right? Rather than avoiding it. Because it's kind of like a lie. Like a lie is going to just fester and come out at some point,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. One of the things you've done is you mentioned earlier is the panic attacks. Can you break down for the audience? A lot of my friends have come out recently and they've told me I didn't realize I was having panic attacks. Like I think a lot of general public, and maybe you agree or disagree, that they don't know what they are. So maybe
Mhm.
first we could, as we start walking into that part here, what is a panic attack?
Yeah. Like an anxiety attack. It's a wave inside of you of adrenaline and cortisol where you don't feel right. You feel like something is wrong. People describe it as like waves of fear, impending doom. Like you feel like something is off. Like you're either going to drop dead, something's really wrong with you, something ain't right. And it's an awful feeling. And all of a sudden, because of that sensation in your body, you jump in your head and you spiral downhill because you panic. You go into worst case scenario. Like something's wrong. I'm going to die. I'm going to have a heart attack. Like a couple of times, my left arm went like tight and I thought I'm having a heart attack. One time my left side of my face went numb. I thought I was having a stroke. Like these are very scary scenarios where your heart rate goes up. You don't know what's happening. And so a lot of people, yeah, don't know what it is and they end up in the ER and then they get, dispersed and like there's nothing wrong with them.
And then if they do find out, they finally realize that they're having these panic attacks, you know, because I think a lot of people are startled, like we said earlier. There's what is happening to me, and then they try to use some mainstream methods to solve the problem. What are some of those typical mainstream methods, and then how did you overcome those panic attacks without those mainstream methods?
Yeah. Xanax,
That's obvious.
hydroxyzine. Yeah,
Yeah.
like medication, right? Therapy, calming techniques, guided meditations, right? And they're all like, okay, cool, right? I don't judge people for doing that because it just wasn't for me. I wanted to go all the way to the root, never have this ever again.
Hmm.
And so I didn't do this route because I think it's like kicking the can down the road. It's a lie. If you use a guided meditation when you're feeling panicky, okay, you feel better, but you still have the issue inside of you. So it's going to show back up. You're going to keep having panic and anxiety. So I faced it. Like I literally learned how to regulate my nervous system. And I teach people this, how to relax the tensions in your body, to release the tension, the suppressed emotion, and process it out, because that's the root of this. We all store suppressed emotions. So I want to release it. I want to move through that uncomfortability and face it so that I don't have these issues.
Yeah. So what was the methodology that you used to tackle that then and get down to the root?
Yeah. So number one is regulated nervous system. So if you have panic anxiety, you're dysregulated. You're tense. You're always thinking. You're always doing. You're always busy, and that can't happen. Like you can't operate that way. You know, you're going to burn out, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have all kinds of issues. So you have to learn to regulate. And I teach people how to lay flat, release the control of their muscles, release the control of their breathing. Doesn't mean you stop breathing. It means you stop forcing your breath. You let go of control, and then the mind lets go, and you regulate. Your body knows how to regulate itself when we get out of the way, our human. It's like your heart knows how to pump efficiently when you get out of the way. So that's number one. The second thing is teach people how to unhook from negative emotions as they're happening. Like, don't go take a bath later when you're stressed. In that moment, you have to know how to relax and release that emotion so you don't stuffing it down for later, because it's going to, again, stack and stack and stack. And then the third thing I teach, which is pretty neat, is called catalyst merging. Catalyst meaning events in your life that you've stored. Merging, we need to merge with these energies. We need to release them instead of suppress them. So the biggest boulders of your life, how do you release them without therapy? This isn't therapy. I'm not digging in the past. I'm not finding out what your mother said to you. I'm like, we're tapping into that energy and releasing it for good so that you can be free of this.
Yeah. So do you feel releasepanic.com that you've created, that people come to and then they start working with you? Is this was it all self-taught essentially then, and then you're just formulating it into your own method?
Some of it was intuitive. Like I knew I had to do the self-regulation, and then I found someone who kind of taught that, and I kind of modeled it after. Yeah, it's based on similar methods, but I distilled it as much as possible. There's so much fluff, and there's so much steps, and there's so much mind that gets in the way. I wanted this to be like the ultra simple way to do this, because it's for men, I'm assuming there's a lot of men in this audience. For men, it's very hard to relearn this because we're so conditioned to live in our head and our mind and logic and reason. And I get it, I too. But we have to learn to tap into that feminine part of us. We all have that energy, guys. Like, it's not guy and girl. It's like a different type of energy to relax into this stuff and process it. It's the only way.
Yeah, beautiful. I got two questions here that I ask every guest as we kind of run up on the at the end of the interview. Going back in time, and if you could give yourself one piece of advice, John, before you started releasepanic.com, what would that be?
No, nothing, because I had to go through 20 years of anxiety to learn what I learned. Like, it's all beautifully orchestrated. I wouldn't change anything. And I know that's a cliche answer, but if I would have told myself something before, I wouldn't have had those experiences to know the depth of the experience I know now, so it was meant to be.
Your answer is not cliche, actually. Being that you're probably a guest maybe 350 on this show, that was actually one of the more unique ones. So I love that. I love that you just lean into that, buddy. It's just kind of a reflection, I feel like, of how you lean into the pressure and look at you crushing out there. So
anxiety, real quick, anxiety and panic is the best thing that ever happened to me. I know that sounds insane, but because of that, I am so much stronger and embodied than I ever would have been without it.
Yeah. Well, it's a gift. That's an interesting thing. Like, I've been really on this tip of like law of polarity. Like, I tell my children, like, they're like, when do you get excited? And I go, when something negative happens. Why? Because the positive's coming. Like, it has to. That's just physics. So I love that, John. I hope people this hit some people that really need it today. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to this show, and no matter how successful you are, like, I've had a panic attack and anxiety attacks, and I've come up with my own methods to kind of deal with that sort of thing. But if people need your help, how can they follow you? Where can they get in touch with everything you do?
Yeah, the free guide at releasepanic.com/free just breaks down the myth of the whole mental health, mental performance issue. Like, there's nothing wrong with working on your mind, but it's a deeper issue. And I guide people, and you can try it on your own. You can follow me, whatever. I don't care. But I can guide people through that. And if you are a successful person, like you've always been successful in your life, but now on your next level of pursuit, you're running into this, like, these mental blocks or these subconscious behaviors you can't overcome. It's not mental. And if you've tried all the mental stuff, go to that website, releasepanic.com/free, and dive in, because that's the real root. And that's what will help you transcend and embody the next level of your mastery.
I love it, John. Thank you so much for being on the show today, for sharing your story. You've been a great guest. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Lance. It was awesome.